In this part, we are going to continue with the calendars. Before starting a new construction project, you have to consider non-working days, official holidays, and daily working hours because they directly affect the project completion time. And in P6, we are going to use the calendars to make such kind of arrangements. You can define unlimited number of calendars, and there are some different types of calendars in Primavera. Now we will discuss them. First, to open calendar screen, we will use enterprise menu again. Before creating a project, we usually use only this enterprise menu. Here, I'm going to select calendars. So this is the calendar screen. In P6, you can define three different types of calendars, which are global, resource, and project. First of all, I want to describe them. If you have a global calendar, it means that you can use this calendar for all projects in your database. For example, assume that a construction company has several projects in Russia. And as a planning engineer in one of these projects in Russia, you created a project calendar. So you defined official holidays in Russia, non-working days in your company, and so on. And then the company starts another project in Russia. There may be some small differences, but let's assume that they have the same working days with your project. So if you create your calendar as a global calendar in P6, the new project can directly use your previous calendar. Otherwise, they have to spend some time to create their own calendar. Uh, this is especially important if the company is using a shared database. Therefore, the global calendar allows user to share the calendars between the projects. The second type, resource calendars, can only be assigned to the resources, not the projects. For example, assume that in your project you are not working on Sundays. This is your calendar. However, let's say the painting team is not working on Saturdays as well. Therefore, you have to create a separate calendar for painting team to represent their working days. And when you assign the painting team to the painting activities, these activities will not continue both on Sundays and Saturdays. Uh, there are some additional options related to this part, but it is too much detail. At this level, I'm not going to talk about them. Also, this example is very uncommon in construction works because the teams usually have to obey the main calendar of the project. For this reason, we will not cover the resource calendars in this tutorial. The last option is project calendars. Here you can create calendars only for the project that you are working on. Other projects cannot share this calendar. For now, this option is not selectable. I think you guessed the reason. There is no current project right now. But when I open a new project, you see that I can also use the project calendar option as well. It is also possible to convert a project calendar into a global calendar so that it can be shared by other projects. You can use this global to global button to do that. So these other options are related to resource calendars, so I will not talk about them. Now I think we are ready to create the calendar given in exercise 3. Let's create a global calendar. So select Add button here. And at the first screen, it asks you to select a base calendar. It will copy all information from this calendar. So it is very important. I always recommend you to select corporate standard full-time here as the base calendar. Select it. And now we have the same calendar with the corporate standard full-time. And we will make some modifications in this calendar. First of all, I will write the name of the calendar, which is class exercise. By the way, there is a default option here. It shows the calendar that will be assigned your new projects by default. Later, you can change the calendar of the projects. I will also talk about it later, but for now, let's keep the default calendar in this way. And we can modify our class exercise calendar using the modify button. So in corporate standard full-time, the non-working days are Sundays and Saturdays, as you can see with this color legend. Also, daily working hours are 8 hours for working days and 0 hours for non-working days, of course. In our exercise calendar, the only non-working day is Sunday. Let's do that. You can use the work week button to change working days. Select work week. So here you can see for Sundays and Saturdays, it is written 0, and for other days, it is written 8. Now, when we change the Saturday as 8, it will also be a working day, and Sundays will remain as non-working days. When I click OK, now you see that Saturdays also become a working time. In addition, according to our exercise calendar, we have official holiday in Republic Day, so we should select October 29. You can use these arrows to change the month, or you can click here and you can select a specific year and a specific month. So here I select October 29. When I click non-work here, you see that it becomes a non-working day. So blue color shows non-working days, gray color shows standard days, and the white color shows the exceptions. For example, Sundays are non-working days, but when I make this Sunday a working day, you see that it becomes an exception. So you can see the color differences here. And when I click standard here, you see that it becomes a non-working day again. Also, in our calendar, we have unofficial holidays on 15, 16, and 17 of October. You can select them together and make them non-working days. And if you want to convert a non-working day into a working day again, you can either click on work or standard. By this way, you can make these days as working days again. Let me make them non-working days according to our exercise calendar. So our calendar is ready now, but I also want to mention a few details here. First of all, unfortunately, we don't have the recurrence patterns in P6. For example, if you have bi-weekly holidays on Sundays, you have to do this manually in this way. So I can say that MS Project is better than Primavera for this issue. in terms of recurrence patterns. So let me correct these dates. I will make them standard again. Okay. Another issue that you need to be careful about is time periods. Especially hours per day is very important here because in Primavera, every time information is stored in database in terms of hours. I mean, when you write 1 day for the activity duration, Primavera considers it as 8 hours according to this information. And it is very, very important to have same working hours per day, both in the calendar and in this part. For example, when you write here 10 and click OK, Primavera does not update this part. Therefore, it means that 1 day equals to 10 hours according to Primavera. If you assign a 1 day duration to an activity, it will take 8 hours from the first calendar day, and it will take 2 hours from the second calendar day. As a result, your activity with 1 day duration will take 2 days in the calendar. When this is the case, you may get some weird scheduling results. So what I'm trying to say is that you should always have the same numbers here. If I have 8 here, I should also write 8 here as well. So now 1 day equals 8 hours and 1 calendar day also equals 8 hours. Okay. You can also define a detailed working hours per day in P6 using this option. We know that normally 1 day equals 8 hours, but when you click detailed work hours per day, you can also see the hourly details here. For example, if you want, you can add a lunch break here. And I will also make these times working times in order to have 8 hours per day. So you see that when I do this, this state also becomes an exception. You can see the color difference here because I changed the working hours for this state. Let's make it standard again. And when you click the work week in this format, in details work hours per day format, you can also make the arrangements in this view, as you can see. Normally, we have here 0 or 8s in the previous format, but this time you can see the details for each date, hourly details for each day, and you can also make some arrangements here. But in construction works, we never deal with the hours. The minimum time periods for us is always a day. For this reason, I don't recommend you to use this option, and I recommend you to use total work hours per day. And when you are ready, you must close this window with this OK button. Otherwise, you will lose your calendar information. I told you that everything is written to P6 database immediately, but there's an exception here. Please be careful and don't use this cancel button or this cross button. Just click this OK button to save your calendar. And finally, I want to show you this used by option. When you click used by button, you can see the projects or resources which are using this calendar when you click used by button. For this new calendar, we don't have any assignment, but for example, for corporate standard full-time. When I click used by, you see many projects and resources here. So it means that when you delete this calendar, all of these projects will be affected. So you can use this used by option before deciding to delete a calendar. And you need to be careful about this option as well. Okay, it is the end of this part. Thank you for your attention. And in the next part, we will continue with resource dictionary.